Hey, how's it going? It's Keith Townsend from the CTOadvisor.com. You're watching another CTO Dose. And again, we're live at Rubrik in the Archer Room. And no, your eyes do not deceive you. I do have a Canadian. I know you can tell by looking just that he has that Tony Hortons look to him. Matt, thanks for bringing me the coffee crisp.
Absolutely.
The maple syrup is great.
I'm very Canadian in that regard.
So we've seen each other more or less, or we've been in the same circles for the past week. We're coming off VeeamON.
Yep.
Now we're at Rubrik Camp, where we've learned a lot about Rubrik and their platform. Specifically, you want to talk about Polaris.
Yes.
And I'd be interested to know what was your impression of Polaris before the camp, and what's your impression of Polaris post-camp?
So before the camp, it was largely a matter of, they're building in integrations to these other SaaS platforms. Makes sense, considering Rubrik's known for the backups, they want to have ties into these other SaaS offerings.
Right.
After sort of going through things today, I have a much better feel for it that it's not so much about gaining access for backup and recovery purposes, but it's really about getting to that metadata that's being hosted on those SaaS platforms, getting it onto the Rubrik platform, at which point, you might be able to do, we've discussed about like e-discovery. Once you have all that metadata, you can really start gaining, access, gaining insights into all the data across your organization, regardless of where it is.
So we had, we talked to a lot of folks. We talked to the CEO, Bippo. We talked to the CMO. We talked to the product teams. We talked to the founding engineering teams. And the message has been pretty consistent. While backup has been a central theme, like of a feature of the platform, like the selling point for me so far today has been the value of the metadata and Polaris exposing that metadata to via API to the customers. My mind goes all over the place about what we could do with that from an API and data set. What about you? Did you get any not necessarily non-intuitive, but things that you're like, this would be an interesting platform to do X with?
Well, going back to the metadata, being able to keep track of, what type of data is it, where is it physically located? Obviously, we're talking about GDPR a lot now. So something like this might be a good way to say, we need to see where do we have this person's data located, whether it be physically, is it, on premises in AWS, maybe you're able to track what physical data center you're in. Or, it's a matter of everything's good there. We have nothing on this particular, search term that we're looking for. We touched a little bit, on it'd be pretty cool as far as from an analytics point of view. And when you start getting into that sort of stuff, once again, metadata is the real key for that. So where I really see it fitting in is Rubrik saying, give us access to your data. And from there, we'll be able to do pretty cool things with it in the future.
Yeah, I like the first use case, the GDPR use case he gave, is if I'm a European citizen and I say, I work for Rubrik and I leave Rubrik and I want to ensure that all of my data that Rubrik isn't legally obligated to hold is deleted. Administrator can go in, a GDPR administrator can go in and say Keith Townsend and find out where in the world that data existed, reference Keith Townsend and maybe Social Security number or the European equivalent. The analytics piece, I'm really intrigued by that. The idea that you could take you can take the metadata that lives in AWS, which is all the metadata, to all your data and provide that to an AI engine and get analytics from that, or not even analytics, but potentially machine learning. So it seems pretty boundless, the possibilities, pretty interested in it. We're kind of, poking and prodding them a little bit to find out what they were going to release next versus what is available from the partner ecosystem. So, we're independent. So as you look out at the overall landscape, are there any other companies that kind of pique your interest when it comes to this metadata approach to backup?
No, not specifically on the metadata front. A lot of backup companies I find in the area right now, they tend to focus very much on backup recovery, data availability, all very crucial stuff. I mean, Cohesely's doing a little bit of stuff as far as getting some analytics and whatnot in there. However, I feel their approach is slightly different to that.
Right. They didn't choose to back up as a core part of their messaging, their secondary storage
Absolutely.
target, so that you do get some of the features, but not all of the features from a metadata perspective.
Absolutely.
Well, we can talk to Rollison and validate
there
that.
you go.
Yeah. So, where can folks find out more about you? Of course, you blog. Where can
Yep.
they find the blog?
Yep.
Social media.
So I blog at 42u.ca. I'm Matt, that IT guy on Twitter, and that's about it.
Yeah, .ca. That's the first time we've had a .ca address on the.
I feel
C-
honored.
There you go.
I'm the friendly
Yeah,
Canadian.
and I think hopefully I'll get paid in more maple syrup. Until then, we'll talk to you next. CTO Advisor, CTO Dose. You can find the CTO Dose on the web, ctodose.com. You can find the blog, thectoadvisor.com, and of course on Twitter at CTO Advisor. Talk to you next, CTO Dose.